the idea of freedom itself is the idea that, it's who we are. This is why the founder said that our rights were unalienable because they're a part of who we are. They're a part of our nature,
Yeah, they can't be separated from us.
right?
Yeah,
And
no
anytime
matter
you try to do so,
even when they do, I was just going to say even when they do, it still comes back to haunt them, and
right,
it's almost like there is a universal truth out there, and you can
right,
prove a truth.
yes, yeah, and that's the foundation that liberty rests on. The idea that it is objective, like you said, you can prove that it's true. Um, and I think we're really losing that.
Well, I think there's an intention. It's a purposeful intention to confuse us and to get us to give up a little bit.
Mm.
How many times do you have to fight a fight before you say, you know what, I'm just going to go to work. I'm not going to pay attention to that on TV anymore. I'm just not going to care anymore. Not that you get callous, not that you don't want to make a stand. It's just you've done it so many times. How many more times am I going to do it before I'm just like,
Right.
let's.
Good point.
I've only got so much time in the day, and if we're not going to fight over it, I might as well just give up.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly, the way that the founders expressed it in the Declaration of Independence is, you know, you're going to put up with things as long as you can put up with them. And that's not exactly the phraseology, but, you know, when things are sufferable, we're going to suffer them
Yeah.
because it's difficult to make a change. It's difficult to actually move forward. It takes
Well,
a lot of effort.
it's difficult to unbelieve a lie. It's real easy to learn a lie. It's real easy to believe a lie. It's nearly impossible to unbelieve it. You almost have to have like a sentinel moment where someone brazenly corrects you with almost like physical threat or something before you can even pivot from a lie that you've ingrained into your person. And
You
I
have to be you have to be willing uh, to question your own ideas.
Yes,
Exactly.
you do have to be
And
malleable enough, and you have to be assertive enough. A lot of people don't have that assertiveness, especially like a self control in your mind. You got to
yeah,
blink for a minute and say, "Oh, I got to correct this. This is off," before your emotions just completely take control of you. And we're finding a lot of young men, a lot of people that should be far more stoic in general, being very,
mhm,
very, very led by emotion. And
yeah,
again, all of it I think is very purposeful. I don't think it's a mistake. And I wish we would put our foot in the sand and draw a line and say this is it. Because, if you look back the last 6,000 years of written history, how many people staved off like saber-toothed tigers just so we could be here? And they would kill for a paved road or kill for electricity or water that turns on hot every time. How many
right.
generations would have done anything for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's kind of the point is before you can draw that line in the sand, you really have to understand the principles that line in the sand should be based on. And as long as you know, don't know what those principles are, then it becomes really easy to just give a little here, give a little there, um, piece by piece until it's all gone. And I think that's where we've been heading for a long time. I
Oh, it
don't want to
has been
say
a long
100
time.
years.
Yeah, I would say I don't know how old you are. I'm 45. I don't believe I've ever had a hard time. Do you know what I mean? I've never been through a depression.
Oh,
I've never been to war. I was never in a trench until my foot almost rotted off. I've
hmm,
never do you know what I'm saying? I never had to fight a bear with just a knife in my hand or kill three
right.
guys with a gun. I've never been in any Alamo scenario or deadly
Yeah.
mountain circumstance where I have to cut my own arm off or I've nothing I could think of that was be so profound that it would denounce a lie. Do you know what I mean? Those sentinel moments will pivot a person who's I don't want to say sheltered, but cushy enough where you have luxury lies. For instance, a great luxury lie would be you heard a lot of people say, let's get rid of the cops. We don't need the police officers. That's a luxury lie that only exists with the rich. A poor person in South Central Los Angeles does not wish to have that threat of a police officer coming if you beat me up to go away. That little old lady there in the middle of the city likes the idea of knowing that at least the threat of that phone call could deter the guy that's beating on her right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So that luxury lie only is manageable for a rich person. And you see, there's a list of those kind of lies that are out there, and it seems like the poor will follow suit and listen to those stupid lies that they obviously don't want.
Mm. Well, it's complex. Your example with the police. The purpose of the police should be to protect individual rights. In order for that to happen, you have to have laws that are geared towards protecting individual rights. And that's where we started out in this country. And there are still a lot of laws that protect rights, that protect the individual, but we've gotten away from it. There are a lot of, corrupt laws. There are a lot of laws that protect the state. They don't protect the individual. They're looking out for the interests of the state. And so the police force itself has become somewhat corrupted in that, it's not following completely principles that it's supposed to follow. And so, yeah, a lot of people get angry with some of the problems, and they think that the solution is, well, let's get rid of the police. But that isn't really the problem. The problem is, these principles of government, of good government, that we've gotten away from. And so, you can see that ripple effect throughout society, whether it's in the police, whether it's in our money, any aspect of government. We've got these problems that occur because we've gotten away from true principles.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I would go as far as to say we all have the individual duty to sustain our society with rules that do apply properly to everybody and equally to everybody, and that don't focus on protecting the state but protecting individuals. And you see with COVID, you realize that Canada was a prime example. If you look back at how the 20th century played out for the Russians and the Germans and stuff, it was because the average citizen said, that's not my job. Or the average citizen said, that's not my responsibility. Or it's just my neighbor, it's not me. And before you know it, I'm just doing my job turns into a little piece of hell for everybody around you. And that happened really fast in the 20th century on several levels in several places in the world. And it was based solely on what we saw the last couple of years go through in too many places. Canada was ridiculous to the point where truck drivers refused to do their jobs on purpose because they were the final line. The cops should have stood up. The linemen should have stood up. The road construction workers, everybody should have stood up and said, we need to draw a line in the sand. And my community where I live in Texas, they said you have to wear a mask. The governor said you had to wear a mask. And my sheriff, the chief of police in my city, said if he wants to make a law, he can come and enforce it. I don't have time to be enforcing his laws. And that law died that day. It was probably 3 days into COVID or a week into COVID. And you could walk into Walmart without a mask on in my town.
Yeah, well, these are all good examples of, very complex issues.
Yeah. So now I want everybody to know I'm not for or against COVID. I'm not for or against masks. It wasn't a matter of any of those principles at all. It was just the fact that that man had a right, a duty, and a responsibility to draw a line in the sand and say, Jeff, you are responsible for putting on a mask, and I am not going to coerce you into doing it.
Right.
And he knew that line mattered.
Yeah, and this is the idea that, that America was based on. This idea that, you are responsible for yourself, and that the purpose of government is not to, be a parent over you. And it's not to, you know, vote so that we can decide, who gets to rule and who doesn't. The purpose of government is only to protect your rights. And other than that, you know, you're responsible for yourself. And if you violate someone else's rights, that's where government can step in. And it's a very simple idea. It's a beautiful idea. And it's the reason that America so quickly became the most prosperous, the country that everyone wanted to emulate and to go to, just because of this idea. I mean, the idea of freedom is the idea that every individual has a right to their own life, and because they have this right to their own life, they have a right, to liberty, to property, and other than that, you know, you are responsible for yourself. And that is the simple idea that the Individual Rights Project is based on. If I can just at least get this idea front and center back in the minds of people in the culture, then I'll feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. That's one of the reasons why I caught you. And normally, if things don't go well, I won't do it a second time, or it just doesn't work
Yeah,
out. It's very difficult. But I knew that this conversation needed to happen. It's a unique, perplexing scenario that it even has to be brought up. It seems like it's so self evident. But
right.
the reality is they've eroded away the concept because the coin is only shown on one side. I have rights, I have rights. But they also need to realize that there's a line also in the sand where duty becomes also an important part of the equation. You can't have rights without responsibility.